Welcome to episode 17 of Impacted. I'm your host Bison, and this week I'm joined today by the one and only William Gardner. And for any of you that may not know who Bill is, well, he is a guy that sits pretty much in the front row of every single Impact taping wearing the Moose waistcoat. And before that, if I remember rightly, Bill, you used to wear the EC3 jacket, didn't you?
Yes, that was my first calling card, if you will.
Certainly was, yeah. Now, it's great to have you with us today, and thank you for agreeing to do this show with me. It's really cool having a few different people stepping into Joe's shoes while he's recovering in hospital. So we wish him all the best. I know
Yes.
I do
Yeah, well
speak to
soon,
him. I do speak to him most days. So whether it be physically or by a messaging or whatever, and he's certainly improving. So that's great to see, and hopefully, who knows, he could be heading back to the hot seat very, very soon. So thank you very much for joining us for this week's episode of Impact.
I appreciate it.
And I want you to let the listeners know who it is that we're going to be talking about this week.
We are talking about the World Heavyweight Champion, Tessa Blanchard. Notice, not the TNA champion, Moose, the world champion, Tessa Blanchard.
Oh, yeah. Now, at the end of the day, who is Tessa, though? I mean, who is Tessa? I mean, Tessa is the daughter of the legend horseman Tully Blanchard. And, of course, her stepfather is the incredible Magnum TA. Plus, her grandfather was Joe Blanchard. So, bottom line is, she's a third generation pro wrestler.
Yes.
Now, I mean, there's some serious lineage there. I mean, she basically has wrestling in the blood.
Quite the pedigree.
Oh, quite the pedigree. I mean, it's in the blood. Let's face it, it's in the blood. Now, I've got some basic facts and stats. Now, most of this stuff I get offline, and me and Trent joke all the time that if it's online, it must be true. So. So effectively, she's 24 years of age. She comes from Charlotte, North Carolina. She's billed at 5'5". Now, I actually thought she was a little bit taller than that because Sammy is about 5'11". Mm-hmm. Now, she must be. I don't know. Maybe her boots has got a bit of a bit of an extra inch or so on there. I don't know. But when they go toe to toe, they pretty much look similar heights.
Yeah, she really doesn't look out of place with pretty much any of the competitors. She obviously wrestled Brian Cage. You would think she would just look, but she didn't. She really looked like she could compete with him physically, even like at her stature, which is saying something.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so I was really surprised when I read that she was 5'5". I was shocked. And actually, funny enough. Thinking about it, I had my photograph taken with her in last November at the New York Tape. Well, funny enough, where we met. And I'm actually thinking about it now because I'm the same height as Sam. I'm 5'11". So I'm thinking about it. And she was a little bit shorter than me. So I think she must wear some. She must have some on those boots. Give her those extra couple of inches, I reckon. But anyway, now her professional in-ring debut was 2014. So, in reality, she's been wrestling for 6 years, and she started her professional debut. She was 18. So, I mean, in terms of professional wrestlers getting to the kind of stage that she is in her career, that's not very long. I mean, I've talked about some of the guys on the Impact roster that, even like your Ethan Pages, your Josh Alexanders, etc. Those guys, and even like your Rich Swans, actually, your Rich Swans, your Tyre Bell, all these guys, they've been like 10 plus years.
Yeah.
Some of them, I mean, Michael Elga's like 14, 15 years he's been wrestling. So in terms of kind of experience, I guess, to get to where she's got to at the moment, in a short space time of 6 years, that is super impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing to see how far she's come in such a short period of time. I actually saw her for the first time live only about 10 minutes from my house at a VFW lodge in 2015, late 2015. and it was actually against the latest debuting knockout, Deonna Purrazzo.
Really?
At a Yeah, so that might be a future feud, but back then, and Tessa did not win that night, but you could see how advanced she was, like that the skills that were there that just were uncovered over those next couple of years.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Um, Now she's had quite an impressive pre-impact career, to be fair. Like I say, especially considering the short time that she's been around. Now she's competed in several indie promotions. Now, obviously, from 2014 until she signed with Impact in 2018, I know she still does indie bookings as well, but primarily, um, obviously she's cut a lot of that back now because obviously she's top of the tree on Impact.
Mhm.
But I mean, prior to that, I mean, she was working for like ECWA, WSU, Shine, Crash, Rise. She also appeared on Lucha Underground. Um, and to be fair, I think one clear thing was the star that she was starting to shine through, and winning titles was pretty much wherever she went. I mean, wherever she went, she was accomplished. There was no doubt about it. She was turning up, and she was showing the world what it was she was about. And to be fair, this is all prior to turning up on Impact. I mean, you've already said that you'd seen her a couple of times prior to Impact. Did you see her at any of these other promotions like Rise or Shine or?
I think I may have seen her on a Shine card or maybe Shimmer as part of
Oh,
an
you've
Evolve
seen the other
double
one
head.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I saw her on one of those in between. But I think you nailed it when you said star. I think she's always just come off. She has that it factor, that quality that just not everybody can get. You just see her from the moment she steps out to she gets in the ring throughout the match. She just has star written all over her. So as you're right, like any company that would have her work for them, you put the title on her, you give her the main event. She brings people in to see the show.
Yeah.
That's there's no doubt about it.
And she just basically she'll go out there and just sort of kind of like perform out of the park. Blow just
Yeah.
hit the ball straight out of the park. That's it, job done. Um, which is why, like moving on to the next bit that I want to talk about, I was really surprised at how this sort of kind of panned out. But Tessa appeared several times on the WWE NXT brand in 2016. And I mean, losing pretty much. I think she had something like three or four matches and lost every single one of them. But she then went on to. She was then sort of kind of called back in to then compete at the Mae Young Classic. Um, Again, I'm putting a big question mark on this because for me, it was just another clear example of WWE not realizing the potential in her because, again, she lost in the first round.
Hmm.
Uh, and I don't know what you think, but for me, I'm glad that WWE didn't see the potential in her. Um, but I think it's another prime example of where they keep dropping the ball on great talents.
Yeah, I think they had to know because I don't think they're stupid there. I think they had to know there was potential there, but she obviously was so young still. I think maybe they thought she needed to train more, get more there, and they weren't ready to elevate her that quickly.
Well, you
So
well you say that, but I mean when you look at talents like Paige, for instance. Now,
yeah,
I mean Paige was recruited when she was like 18, 19 years old, and like within a year she becomes WWE
you're right.
Diva champion.
There's definitely
So
exceptions, and they did not make an exception for Tessa, which obviously it worked out better for Impact for sure. I think long term for her, it probably I think it's better for her career overall because I think she was just able to develop at a rate she wouldn't have been able to develop there because you get lost there. It's very tough for someone you can't put on the kind of matches she's been able to put on, especially I'm sure we'll get into it with intergender that would never have happened.
no, 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 that's for sure. Um, and for me, I mean, her her whole persona, like she has a presence about her, and I think there's not many female wrestlers in the world that have that that kind of present. I mean, I guess you could say, there's a couple of I mean, Paige has it. That's for sure. I mean, there's a couple of wrestlers. Britt Baker, for instance. Britt Baker at AEW has got that kind of there's just that aura. There's that thing about
Yeah.
her that sort of kind of sets her aside from everybody else. Oh, Taya Valkyrie, of course.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say.
Yeah,
Ty,
yeah.
obviously,
Ty is
she
another
has
one.
it in spades.
And of course, I mean, even Rosemary in it, but in a completely different way.
Yeah.
Because Rosemary it is so character driven rather than necessarily like what she can do in the ring driven. That's not to say she can't go in the ring, but she's just it's all about the character as opposed to necessarily kicking the shit out of people, I guess. So it's a totally different kind of approach to being a wrestler, I guess. But yeah, no, I was really, really surprised that they didn't take her on. Really surprised. I bet, I don't know, but they're probably not. But I would imagine that they're looking over and thinking, of course, she's doing some big things. Imagine what she could have done here. But who knows what will happen in the future? And I'm sure there's going to be people wanting to take her away from us. I'm sure about that. But hopefully she'll stay
I'm
with us.
sure.
Yeah. Now, of course, we move on to kind of Impact Wrestling. So I don't like to say I didn't want to spend too much time on her pre-career because there's so much to talk about, on her career here with us at Impact. So she turned up for the first time at an Impact pay-per-view called Redemption. When she appeared on commentary. Now I remember this well because at the time it was a really, really big deal. Now, if I remember rightly, were you actually there at this taping when she at this pay-per-view?
I was at that pay-per-view. That was the pay-per-view that originally was supposed to be in Toronto, but then they moved it to Orlando. It was kind of like where they weren't sure where they were going to tape, but yeah, I was at that one. That was one of the last ones, as we found out in Orlando.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was one of the last ones. But I remember she sort of she just basically came out, sat down, was really sort of kind of very well, I'm the best thing since sliced bread,
Oh
and
yeah,
you could tell right away that she's very confident in her own ability, and the way that they were sort of kind of effectively billing her, I guess, or promoting her within the commentary team at the time, you could tell that she was going to be a big deal.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, they were. Yeah, it wasn't. They weren't hiding the fact that she was going to be a force in the Knockouts division.
no, they certainly weren't. But what was the pop like in the actual arena when she came in?
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. Now, once again, I know a lot of people will kind of get on to the old Impact Zone, but for a pay-per-view, it was a good pop. Pay-per-views, people showed up there. A lot of times people didn't stay for tapings that were part of pay-per-views, but for the pay-per-view, it was a good crowd, an Inuit crowd, and they definitely popped for her. So, but then I think they kind of realized she was going to be the heel, so it's a little different. But they definitely recognized her presence.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, that's good. So she then went on to defeat Kira Hogan in her debut match, which was a week or so later. Now it was a really good match actually, and I think Kira was probably a really good first opponent for Tessa because Tessa's I think Kira's probably maybe the same height, maybe a little bit shorter, but she's powerhouse as well. She's strong and fast, really fast. So I think she gave Tessa a good run out, and it was good to see that although clearly Tessa was then to go on to be obviously the one that they were putting their money on kind of thing. I think that they made sure that Kira didn't look weak in this as well, which I think is a really good skill that the Impact creative or the Impact management do. That even when a wrestler loses, they tend to try not to make them look weak in a
Yeah.
loss. Because at the end of the day, as soon as you squash somebody, well, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go with that?
Exactly. And Impact tends to, like, they don't have the biggest roster. They have a nice size roster, but they don't use usually almost ever like local enhancement talents to get people over. They're using their own people in all these matches. So you got to be careful on how you book them. And they walk that fine line of not burying anybody, which is good to see.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I do think it was a good match. I mean, do you remember the match?
I do. Yeah. No, that was a good match. And I think really at that same time you were seeing what Kiera could become too, which obviously we've seen her evolve over these last couple of years.
Oh, incredibly. I mean, for me, she's probably the most improved talent on the Knockouts roster in the
Yeah.
last years.
And I think if you Don and Scott will agree to that. Like I know usually her and Ace Austin are usually at the top of the list of this is the future of the company type people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, without that. I mean, again, you're talking, what's Kira, 22, 23,
yeah, very
and
young, very young.
Ace is like 22. So, you're right. I mean, you're talking about, you've got at least another 10 years in them if we could nurture them and bring them through. So, yeah, so we started to see more and more of Tessa on Impact, but she had her first pay-per-view match against Ali, and that was at Slammiversary, which she won with ease, to be honest. Now, personally, I like Ali as a character. I got the whole Ali character thing, but I was never particularly high on her in-ring matches. So Tessa completely dominating her was probably no surprise to me, and exactly what I would have expected from that kind of match. Because at the end of the day, in terms of the character that Ali was and the character that Tessa is coming into that, if she didn't dominate, then there's something wrong, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and I liked Allie too, but I I had seen Allie or Cherry Bomb before that on the Indies
Yeah, yeah,
for a few years before that, and that character I would have liked to see an Impact at some point, but obviously they had a different direction. Obviously the stuff with Maria Kanellis and all that, it'd been tough to really believe that in that character because they almost remember she wasn't even a trained wrestler was the kind of the
yeah.
storyline for Allie. So it'd be really tough to believe to have her go over much more than she ever did there.
Yeah, and then suddenly become Cherry Bomb. I've seen some of the Cherry Bomb, was it the Demon Slayer type
Yeah,
character as
that
well?
was the
Like,
closest they came to it. But obviously that wasn't really for long in a storyline before she departed the company.
yeah. Okay, so I mean, it was so again. So there we go. So she wins her debut pay-per-view. So again, like I say, no surprise to me. Then obviously we're seeing Tessa week in week out. Promo stuff, the odd match here and there. But we then get to August and we saw an incredible three-way knockout championship match between Tessa, Su Young, and Ali. Now, I think it was like it wasn't a pay-per-view, it was a special called
Yeah,
Redefined.
yeah.
Now I don't know whether this was one of them weekly specials they were doing on TV or whether this was a Twitch or Impact Plus special. I
I
can't
believe
remember.
it was a name TV special. I believe if
I
my
think it
memory serves
was.
me, because yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a weekly name show when they were doing that for a bit.
And it was definitely at the Rebel Complex as well,
Correct.
so,
Yeah, I was trying.
which is an incredible venue.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a great venue. It's not a huge venue, but the lighting, it's a great venue. Hopefully they go back there when things open back up in the future.
it just makes it. I think because of the lighting, the way that everything's all set up, all that stuff around the top, and I think it just really makes the show look really special.
Yeah,
Like like
it really translates the TV product comes off very good in Toronto, and especially for a pay-per-view or a big show with a good crowd. You got everything there for a winning combination.
yeah, it's a great venue. Do you know how many people get in there?
They could probably fit because there's space. There's a lot of floor space. Um, I would say set up for a wrestling show, maybe about 1,000 or so people. is roughly what it's
Really?
probably set up for. There is an upstairs, so it's kind of tough to tell exactly what could fit up there too. But I'd say maybe about 1,000 is probably
Okay.
like maybe you could go a little bit above, a little bit below, but in that range, it seems like.
It's it's not a bad size though, really. Not
It's
for
not a
sort of
bad
kind of where
size.
they're at the moment, you know.
I think
Um,
it's a right size venue for a TV. Depending on the pay-per-view, you could go bigger, but for a TV, I think it's the right size venue.
Fantastic. So we got that. Of course, you know, we get a winner, which obviously turned out to be Tessa.
Yep.
And this is obviously where she ended up becoming the Knockouts champion. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about her character at this point because um, she at this point she's portraying herself as kind of very arrogant. Obviously, she's a very arrogant heel, um, and that she sort of very much is better than anybody else. That kind of like, like she said, she's the diamond. She is she is the ultimate female diamond wrestler or whatever it is that she comes up with these days. And I must admit, I love that for her. I think she
Yeah.
played it really, really well. She really oozed this kind of like, you're not going to beat me. I'm the best thing since sliced bread attitude. And there's nothing wrong with having that. At the end of the day, if you feel, that it doesn't matter who goes in the ring. At the end of the day, I'm better, and that's it. Well, that's a great way to it. If you were a professional boxer or whatever, that's a great way to go into a ring. Feeling that you are the best, and at the end of the day, ultimately, I am going to win the day. And I think that the way that she portrayed that character was pretty good and very convincing.
Yeah, like especially obviously from her lineage with Tully's influence, for her not to come in with that type of character would have been a mistake not to do that, because it's almost writes itself for her to act that way, to be kind of, especially being so young, and just that's a perfect character to get people to not like you. It's a great heel.
Yeah, because people hate that, don't they? They hate the arrogance, and they do. They absolutely hate it. But it worked perfectly, and I think it just played totally into her character and into who they wanted her to be, and yeah, I mean everybody was like, she's the best thing since bread, but I can't stand her. And it's kind of like, do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they knew it. It was great. Um, so either way, at this point, you could see the impact were very high on Tessa. Um, and I think they had big plans. They could see big things in the future for her. Whether it was going to be this intergender stuff, even then, I don't know. But whether that sort of kind of developed a little bit later, whether they always had plans for that, I don't know. But you could definitely tell they were extremely high on her and they were going to push her. Now, obviously during her title reign, we saw some really good matches. With Sue Young. Um, I believe we saw Fabi Apache at one of the Mexico tapings, and she's a great talent.
She is.
Fabi. I mean, she's an older talent, but
Yep.
someone that's been around a long time and is very good at what she does. And so it was good to see Tessa in the ring with her and obviously win, which was good. She has several incredible matches with Taya, um, where Tessa beat her a couple of times. I think she beat her twice
Mhm.
before Taya earned that third shot at the title, which would eventually see Gail Kim insert herself in as that special guest referee, because she was sick and tired of Tessa's terrible attitude um, towards everybody and the knockouts division that she built from scratch. It's all about Gail at that moment in time. So obviously she inserted herself in there because of that reason, and she wanted to make sure that the match was straight down the line, and it was going to be a great match. So, and this match was going to be held at Homecoming. Now, did you go to Homecoming?
I did go to Homecoming.
Oh my God, you're so good. You get to
Yeah,
go to all of these things. You're such a
down
lucky
down
man.
in Nashville. Yeah, one of the Well, I guess the last show I was at the Asylum. I don't know if it was the official last show there, but it was close to it, if not.
Yeah, definitely. Now, but of course, we saw Taya lose the title. Um, sorry, we saw Tessa lose the title to Taya, who then went on, obviously, the longest reigning knockouts champ history run. Um, Now, of course, Tessa then blames Gail um, for this. I mean, I believe that there was during the match there was some to in and throw in, and I think Gail actually ended up giving her defeat or something, and then Taya ends up doing the Road to Valhalla, and then getting the 3 count. If I remember rightly, it's quite a while ago. I mean, Christ, that's what, last February, February
Yeah. Well, yeah.
2019.
Well, yeah. I guess what? That was actually January, right?
There you go.
The pay per view.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, January
It's a
last year.
while
So it's
back.
quite a way
Yeah.
back. That's a while back now. So obviously, Tessa blamed Gail, and then after getting her rematch, which was a street fight, if I remember rightly, with Taya, and then Taya won that again.
Hmm.
That's when we then see obviously the feud with the Hall of Famer Gail Kim, and all this. So much stuff was going on with that. Loads of sort of kind of to and fro in. Like I said, Gail was completely fed up with her attitude. I mean, and wanting to teach her a lesson in the ring, all that kind of stuff, which is great because we get to see Gail back in the ring again, which is wonderful. And then we even saw some really crazy promos. Like I think Tessa turned up I've forgotten his name now, but Gail's husband's famous
Oh
restaurant.
yeah, Robert Irvine. Yeah, yeah.
That's right, getting in there and smashing the place up. Do you,
Yeah.
do you remember that? Just
I
literally turned up and just smashed the
yeah,
place up.
yeah. I think they taped that in Windsor, because I think like I heard about them doing it like as we were going into the show. Someone's like, "Oh yeah, they were filming this crazy thing at a restaurant." So yeah.
Just literally smashed the place up. It was brilliant. But of course, and again, that's all, fueling the whole anger, the whole bad attitude type scenario. That she just wanted to get her hands on Gale before it didn't care when. She just needed to get her hands on him, and yeah, and then of course that went on obviously to end up being a pay-per-view. I'm just remembering now. Rebellion,
Yes. Yes.
which actually I'm going to state now was my favourite pay-per-view of 2019.
Mhm.
Rebellion was an awesome pay-per-view. I don't know if you were at that one.
I was at that one, and that
Okay.
was a very good pay per view. It may be that was pretty close. Slammiversary was pretty good too, but Rebellion obviously with the Gail Kim factor there, that's huge. So
It,
that's up
it
there.
was it was an incredible pay-per-view, one of my favourites. The whole flow of the show, I've watched it a couple of times, but the whole flow of the show just really worked that night. It really worked. Everything worked,
Yeah,
and it was a really really good, some great matches. It was a great show, um, and it was one of those that went really quick. Like when you're watching it, it was like, oh, it's over.
yeah,
And you know what I mean? Like it was so quick. It's like when you watch a really good movie and
yeah,
you don't realize it. All of a sudden, it's like 2.5 hours later, and you're like, oh,
yeah. If they
it's over.
leave you wanting more, they've done their job. That's a
It,
great show. If it didn't feel drawn out, like oh that could have ended a half hour ago, you don't want that feeling. So
no,
that's
exactly,
the utmost respect.
definitely. So it was an incredible match. We got obviously the treat of seeing Gail back in the ring, and it was we didn't realise to begin with, but it was clearly going to end as a kind of passing of the torch, from Gail to Tessa, and Tessa of course wins the match, and that led to sort of kind of a bit of a breaking character from Gail and Tessa. Ending up embracing themselves with words of encouragement and praise from Gail. Lots of thank you and tears from Tessa. Of course, that then turns Tessa face
Mhm.
as well in the process. And all this is done with, of course, her father, Tully, in the audience. A real great feel good moment, and the show of respect from father to daughter. I don't know. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it was great having Tully there to share that with her. I think that was and obviously you're right, it was a passing of the torch. Because obviously when you get someone that's such a good heel like that, like how Tessa was going into that match, fans were already cheering for her because when you're such a good heel like Ric Flair, like EC3, you can't help but start rooting for such a good heel. And so they saw that coming. So it was just a natural way to do it. Have that great match with Gail, have her turn face, have Tully, and then just really ride that high that she was on.
I think, yeah, exactly. I mean, it was just a perfect way, and it did exactly what it said on the tin. She went from heel to face in like 10 seconds,
Yeah.
and I think it was, yeah, that was an incredible match, an incredible show, and I think that anyone watching that would see just how talented everybody, including the Hall of Famer Gail Kim, who's, as we all know, is one of the best female wrestlers of all time. Is obviously incredibly high on her,
Yeah.
and could see her kind of leading the way for the Impact Knockouts and the Impact roster as it seems to be now.
Yeah, if someone didn't already know that going into that pay-per-view, that she was a star, that she was a foundation of what Impact was going to
They
be and what wrestling really was going to be, then they realized it after that night for sure.
Yeah, they know it now, don't they? They definitely
Yeah.
know it. So yeah, that was great. So fast forward slightly, and because obviously we've got so much to talk about that we've got to sort of kind of skim a few things. Some of the stuff is not quite so, important in the story of Tessa. Um, so fast forward slightly to July, and we start to see the first interaction with Sami Callihan, um, which I guess is the start of the whole sort of kind of intergender feud. Um, Now, and which then obviously leads to the very first intergender headliner match at a pay per view, taking complete center stage, even over the world title match at the time,
Correct. Mhm.
at Slammiversary. And boy, this match did not disappoint. And credit to both really, because they both told an incredible story from start to finish in the ring that night. And I think they put on one hell of a match. One hell of a match. I mean, Tessa came out in all of her gold.
Yeah,
The
that
gold.
that look is you
Yeah,
remember that look. So that was
exactly.
that star look right there.
It was amazing, and carrying the gold baseball bat. With Sammy obviously with his black one, etc. So yeah, that complemented that really really well. Um, and I just think it was a really awesome moment, and I think that it was an incredible match. I mean, they really told a story. You had that whole kind of you know Tessa going straight in for the
Yeah.
kill. Sammy sort of kind of, taking a bit of a beating, but getting through it, and then starts to dominate. He dominates the match for quite some time until then, obviously, Tessa gets a little bit of a lucky break. Then we get that story where she's sort of the underdog and she's coming back and she's coming back. And at this point, you really don't know who's going to win this match.
Yeah. I think
You know,
probably the majority of the crowd thought Tessa was going to go over and win that
yeah,
match. But what, what we didn't know was it was going to be the start of like an 8-month story arc, which is fantastic.
yeah.
And
I
you're
mean,
right about Sammy. He doesn't get the credit he deserves in that whole feud there because he really helped make that work so well.
yeah, I think it's what's really, really impressive um, is that, and I think I mean, Sammy sometimes gets a bit of a bad rep sometimes, in a sense that because he obviously comes across as such a tosser, I guess, like a real scummy motherfucker, and he couldn't give a shit. But like when they were bringing out those like diary of whoever's stuff, and you start to get to see the real Sammy, the behind the scenes stuff, the caring guy, the guy that wants to put everyone over, and I'm gonna say, and I remember bringing this up to Joe actually, not that long ago. We didn't do it on. I think yes, we did. We did it on our discussion when we talked about Sammy Callahan. We did it when we did the Impacted based on him, and at the New York tapings. Now you may notice this. I don't know, but the top level balcony area, right? The wrestlers tend to go up there and watch the matches, right? But Sammy was always the first one up there offering encouragement. Like he's up there and you can hear him shouting, you can hear him starting off chants, you can hear him doing it, you can see him doing it. I mean, my favourite one was Ace Austin sucks. I must admit when he was started off on that one, that was great. But you can see that he wants everyone to do well. He wants the product to be great. It's not all about him, even though you get a lot of people say, "Oh, it's the Sammy show" or whatever. You hear people saying stuff like that, but in reality, it's not. It's not all about him, and that's why he loses as much as he does.
Yeah,
Because he can lose and still come out looking great.
for
There's
sure.
not many wrestlers that can do that.
No, no, no. There's other ones that would lose, and you almost write them off for
Yeah,
weeks or months. But
yeah, yeah.
now Sammy can always come right back the next week.
Yeah, and win a match, or certainly put out, or do some beatdown or something, or he just suddenly makes you go, oh Christ, Sammy's a badass. No matter what happens, the guy is a badass, and that's it. Um, so
Which was a great kind of balance with Tessa as the face, and that kind of a good way to play off each other. So it was the
exactly.
right opponent for that feud.
Definitely. And of course, when you think about statures as well, because, Sammy's not a massive guy.
Mhm.
Like I said before, he's the same height as me. I'm 5 foot sort of 10, 5'11", something like that. So, like, I mean, obviously I'm a bit chubbier than him. I'm going to say chubbier. I'm not going to. So obviously I'm a bit heavier than he is, shall we say? But at the end of the day, the guy is quite slight when you think about a heavyweight wrestler, right? So when you put him up against Tessa, when they're facing off, it's not like he's up here looking down. They're pretty much looking at each other straight in the eye, kind of thing. Um, and that's where I sort of that's where I think it works so well, because if, for instance, they put her in a feud with Moose, then that's when it suddenly becomes, hang
It's
on, this is
tough.
stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is
that's a
stupid.
tough one.
Exactly. So you put me with someone like Sammy, who is totally into whatever he does and will completely sell it and don't give a monkeys, because then he will put everybody over, knowing that it's the right thing to do at that moment in time to do that.
Yeah,
Um, and that's where he's got that really, really clever wrestling brain. He knows, what needs to happen. Yeah, it's going to take time, but they will get there.
that's the promoter in him. That's the pro wrestling revolver in his head right there.
Exactly. He knows what's going on. He understands the business. Um, which is a great thing. So, they told a great story, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, flips her over, boom, tombstone, and that's it. Over and done. It's done. Um, and of course, like I said, I think it was a little shock, because I think at that moment, everyone was like, Tessa's going to win.
Yeah,
Tessa's going to win. And then, boom, they hit you with a curveball. Sammy wins, just like that. Um, and I like the way that they sort of kind of ended it as well, because it was almost like a show of respect, but at the same time,
of
it
course.
was, yeah, exactly, yeah, and I think that worked really well, and then
Yeah,
fueled the fire to then carry the feud on,
yeah,
I think it was great. I think it was a really incredible match, and I think what it really did was show that there is no such thing as intergender. It is just pro wrestling, and
correct.
I think that's what they're that's what the agenda, I guess, is in the whole process of building Tessa in the way that they are. And of course, Tessa's not the only one that we've seen doing the intergender stuff. And I've had discussions before on with some of the wrestlers I've interviewed with regards to the way that when the females come in, when the female wrestlers come into Impact, if you look back through their history, you'll find that pretty much every single one of them has done intergender wrestling.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you look at like the indies, it's happening all the time. It was happening for years.
Yeah.
Like I remember seeing like Candice LeRae and Joey Ryan when they were the world's cutest tag team. They were always doing intergender stuff, and they were having great matches. And I know a lot of them will say like they're training with men, so
Yeah.
it's just kind of evolves into it. But it's more what company was going to have the appetite to really get into it on a mainstream level, and it was Impact Wrestling.
I guess they saw that, it's not a niche as such, but I guess they're seeing an opening for something a little bit different that they can push as opposed to just doing the same thing as everybody
Yeah,
else. It is that little bit different.
yeah. And
The only thing,
I don't know if they would have done it if it wasn't for Tessa, because I think they saw Tessa as a star beyond just like a division. They wanted her to be the star of the company, I think, and I think that played into it a little bit.
you think really? I mean, like when you bring in people like Taya Valkyrie, for instance, who has been kind of wrestling guys for years. I
Right.
mean,
Yes.
in Mexico, there is no difference between male and female. They
No,
just fight
'cause,
each
yeah,
other.
because
You
Lucha
know, there's
Underground was probably the only other promotion that got to this level before Impact did, and it's definitely more common. It's definitely more of that Lucha Libre. That's fine. That's more. It's more normalized than it is in any other wrestling. But it seemed like not until Tessa did they, because they did that match at United We Stand, that WrestleMania weekend where that whole falling out with Eli Drake, who was supposed to be in it, and then Joey Ryan did it, and it was a very good match.
yeah,
But that's kind of then they kind of, that was like their toe dipping into it, and then they just kept ramping it up and ramping it up. Like they almost needed that right ambassador to be the face of it. It seemed, but
it seemed
who knows? It may have
Tessa
came
wanted
naturally no
to.
matter what.
I think Tessa clearly really wanted to take it on as well because
Yeah.
she proper submersed herself into it. And to be fair, she then went on to narrowly miss out on the X Division title run
Yeah.
by competing in that five-way ladder match
Yes.
where Ace Austin just makes it makes it the best first. So kind of just got there first. Whether you had Tessa on one side and Ace is on the other, and he just kicks her off and he just nips her to become the Triple X Division champion.
Yeah. I think he may have used that
Um,
baton a little bit too.
he may have done. You're right. That's right. He did. Yes, he did. Yeah. Cool. I'm glad you got you here because I wouldn't have remembered that. But
Old
yeah,
school
no.
Ryan.
I mean, it was, and that was an incredible match as well. I
Yeah.
mean, God, I mean, that was fast paced. Yeah, I think Dago was in that match. Am I right in thinking Dago? No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. Or was he? Oh, I don't know. I can't remember. I
Well,
know
I
Jake.
remember Ace Romero had his kind of debut there and had that big spot outside the ring where he went off the ladder and
Bang.
crashed and
Oh man.
burned.
Yes. Oh my God. I mean, I can't believe he did that because, like, being a big guy, like, you land wrong, you're breaking your ribs and you're breaking your bones because of the weight that you're carrying. And boy, doesn't he look good? No.
Yeah.
Have you seen some of the photographs
Oh,
that
yeah.
he's been?
He's been losing a lot of weight. Maybe him and Fala Ba kind of are on the same diet now because Ba lost a lot of weight too. But AC, it's like extreme. Like you can tell a lot already, and
Yeah.
he's using quarantine right.
Yeah. You can see that he's starting to get definition in his arms
Yeah.
and all that kind of bit like
But
when Bully
he's
Ray.
already like an athletic guy, so who knows when we come back from this? Who knows what
Be
AC might do?
Oh man, it'd be. Oh yeah, I think Team Triple XL are really good. I really like them. I like Larry D a lot. He's a beast, so I
Yes.
like him too. But yeah, so while all of that was going on, we still had this kind of like Sammy Tessa feud. It was sort of kind of there simmering in the background. Both sort of kind of really start to create a hatred for each other in promos. Um, and we started to see Tessa matches with like Jake and Madman Fulton, and on several occasions over the months leading up to Hard to Kill. Obviously, we saw a lot of stuff which sort of was really involving OVE, sort of trying to basically keep Sammy away from Tessa, or Tessa away from Sammy, however you want to look at it. We saw promos in and out of the ring. There was lots of stuff going on. We saw them just, coming in and attacking each other. And, we had all sorts of stuff going on in those kind of like months leading up to, the in-ring stuff that we were seeing as well. Now, for me, obviously this then leads up to the New York tapings that we met at. Funny enough, Bill, because you do remember that, I take it, because we met outside with Kyle, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's right. Yeah,
because you guys sat on the one side the one day, and then you were
that's right.
the same road, a couple seats down.
That's right. We came down with you, sat with you and your friend, didn't we? Oh, is there a girl with you as well?
Let's see. It was Dave, and then there was somebody. There was another person there, but I forget who it was. But there might have been. I think because then Rico goes to a lot of shows, but she may have been on the other side. I forget the layout for that one. It's always a little different.
Yeah, but it was very cool. Yeah, really cool. I think we had a great time. We had a really good time. There's some really
Always
good matches.
Never
Really
a bad
good.
time at an Impact show. Never a bad time at an Impact show.
No, and do you know what I found? Everyone was very respectful as well. You didn't. I got to be honest. I was expecting to, get like, I don't know, a load of sort of kind of WWE guys or MLW guys in there giving it large. But in reality, everyone there was very supportive, and they were having a great time. The bar was open and everyone was having fun.
For the most part, you'll always get a pretty good crowd like that. Occasionally, you might have some other ones, like if it's part of, like, there's other shows going on that weekend, then you have more of the transient fans that will kind of come in and maybe try to make it about something else. But it usually will get hollered down by the real fans there. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, so it was good. But what we had, what we definitely had at those tapings was Sammy came in the ring. He did an amazing promo. We seemed to go on forever and ever about how we should be grateful to him for, basically being the hero in this, allowing this whole sort of kind of like, intergender thing to go on, and that he's, it's not intergender, it's pro wrestling and all this kind of stuff, in a proper heel way. And it's quite interesting because although he's like healing it up, he's almost like an anti-heel. I always say, like Batman is an anti-hero. Sammy is very much a Batman of wrestling because he's kind of like this anti-heel. He's like a heel but a face at the same time.
Yeah, he's a little bit. He's a little bit. He's got some of those tweener tendencies, but he makes sure to throw something at the end to make sure you still know he's a heel.
Yeah, exactly.
But he definitely has some of the mindset of a guy that you wouldn't necessarily think he is a bad guy.
No, exactly. Yeah. And everything that he does comes from a place of sort of kind of like doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Business. Yeah, it's about the business.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one really cool thing with him. But of course, that then eventually led. That whole segment, if you remember rightly. Obviously Tessa comes out. We get the Chris brothers and Fulton comes out in the ring. We start getting a bit of a beatdown scenario going on, and then eventually Tessa and Sammy end up going outside and having this almighty kind of street fight in the middle of New York. And yeah, I just remember the storm that got on social media and all over the internet. The actual I tried to look it up earlier because if I remember rightly, the like Facebook and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff, they sort of kind of uploaded it all separately. But I remember, like, on Facebook and stuff, it was like getting like million views or something ridiculous. And then when you go on YouTube, I think it was like 500,000 or something on YouTube, and then there's like another million or 500,000 on Twitter, and it was just insane. And one thing I wanted to bring up as well is that, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, is that whenever you've got a Tessa and Sammy video, as much as you get people going, oh, it's a load of crap, and intergender wrestling, what a load of bullshit, and Tessa being champion, it's just not realistic, and and all the kind of whiny crap that gets thrown around. It's interesting that if you go on to Impact YouTube and look to see how many or who or what clips have the most views, and I'm telling you now, the most views of anything on that on their YouTube channel is always something involving Tessa and Sammy. Always.
Yeah, for sure. They knew that was their main story. Like that was going to get the most eyes, the most viewers, and it did. And that's like Don and Scott, they know how to book right, and that's proper booking. Like they were able to elevate Impact with that storyline, at least in my eyes. I think a lot of other people's eyes. But there's going to be a segment that's not going to want to agree with it. But maybe they're not even watching it to give it a shot.
And that's the problem, and that's some of the problems I do have with a lot of people that are very negative towards the Impact product now, is that they're not even watching it, and it drives me out the wall. You only have to go on to like their Facebook group, and they'll put a clip up, and there'll be some dipstick that goes on there and just slags it all off. But what they're saying, you clearly can tell that they've not actually even watched it. They don't watch the product. They're just making like a sweeping negative comment about the fact that it's a female holding a world title kind of thing,
Yeah, like even if that's something that shouldn't happen, you should at least give it a watch. See what, like, if you watch wrestling for storylines, there's storylines there. If you're watching it for athletic ability, it's there. If it's other reasons that you just don't even try it, but if you watch it and don't try it, so be it. It's like there's always gonna be parts of wrestling people don't like, but it's just, you're right. It's that whole thing, and that's TNA and the Impact. They've had this for years where people just don't give them that chance to watch it, because once they do, they tend to convert people. But there's just a bunch that will not even try it. So they're lost.
Yeah, definitely, it's their loss, and we've got everything to gain on it. But yeah, no. So I mean, all of that then started to really build the buzz. You could see. I mean, there was the hatred, the realism that was being created. There's something about Sammy and Tessa that when they get together, whether it be in the ring or whether it be in some street fight or some on backstage, whatever it is, when they get into it, it looks so real.
Yeah.
And it's, they really look like they are battering the hell out of each other. And I think that in itself, I think is testament to how good these guys are at selling and kind of, being able to sort of kind of make each other look good, and when you find that kind of combination, it's gold. At the end of the day, it's gold. So, so Tessa coming out of Summerversary wearing gold is perfect, because she is gold, or she is the diamond, cut above the rest. But yeah, so that was an incredible time. I mean, we sort of kind of get through that. That sort of leads us then into the new year of 2020, and then we want to sort of kind of like look at the moving on fairly swiftly. We want to look at the number one contender multi-person gauntlet match. Now,
Great match.
Yeah, I mean, that took place, probably a week or so prior to Hard to Kill, and that match included Moose Rich Swann, Michael Elgin, Brian Cage, and Tessa's real life, I was going to say boyfriend, but it's fiance now, isn't it? Daga.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think Rich Swann, of course, was the big winner in that match, because in terms of kind of, incredible, showing off that incredible never say die kind of performance, that was Rich. Rich became, I don't know, I think he was basically, from that match onwards, Rich Swann cements himself as a legend, on the Impact roster. I mean, do you agree with that?
Oh, for sure. Because only a few times have I been somewhere, and that's in Windsor, when he got eliminated and walked to the back, and you just heard that locker room erupt throughout that. Like everybody there knew the locker room was going crazy for what he just did. And when you see something like that, that's special. What you just saw, and to tell that story, to have Tessa go over in that match, you needed someone like Rich Swann to do that part, and he really knocked it out of the ballpark. That was just unbelievable, that match.
Yeah, it was incredible, absolutely incredible. I mean, even like to the Michael Elgin stuff. I mean, Michael Elgin, you could just see he's like, what the fuck am I going to do to beat this motherfucker? And and of course, that sort of kind of then eventually leads to Brian Cage, who at the end of the day then ends up having a set to, though if I remember rightly, I've got to get this right. So we had Rich going through what, two or three people, didn't we? And then now, was Moose then, or was it? I'm trying to remember. Michael Elgin, then Brian Cage, or was it Moose then Brian Cage, and then
Uh,
Tessa?
I think it was I think it was Moose than Brian Cage and Tessa. I think. I
I
think.
think you're right. I think you're right because I remember having this conversation with someone before. It was like, oh, how the bloody hell does someone like Tessa Blanchard, get the 1, 2, 3 on the machine, Brian Cage, and you're like saying, well, what you have to remember is that the whole reason for having a gauntlet match at the end of the day is, by the time Tessa comes in reality, what should have been the case is that Brian is now not 100%.
Correct. Correct.
Right?
That
He's
that's the
not.
that's the way you book that. That's how you tell that story. For you just get more people to buy in to what's happening. It makes it much more believable for those people that could doubt it. That Brian Cage and Tessa, even though I know on the Indies they had matches before, one-on-one
Yeah.
matches, but this one you had for the TV audience, you had to make it believable with a gauntlet. It was the right way to go.
Yeah. So Brian comes in. He's battling it with another big dude. He's taking the wind out of him a little bit. Tessa comes in. We get probably no longer about 5 minutes, I would imagine, with them two, and
Yeah.
and then Tessa gets the 1, 2, 3, boom, number one contender. Um, and for me, that was like I said, although Rich Swann, is the real winner in that match in the way that he ended up being portrayed and getting elevated through his performance. Tessa walks away number one contender,
Right.
which is what we need, which is what we're after. So we then arrive at Hard to Kill. Now, we get a little bit of controversy now. Literally days before the pay per view about Tessa. What's your take on all of that stuff?
It obviously I was down there for it, and I remember like there was a pretty much a like a fan interaction event the day before Hard to Kill, in next to the Texas Ranger Stadium, where they were doing some like indie matches and autograph signings, and like you could just because I wound up doing a meet and greet with Tessa at that, and like she came in late, and you could tell like how like you could tell like she was on the phone, and there was all kinds of craziness that day. And to me, at least my opinion on all that is a lot of people were making opinions on stuff that they didn't know. They were
Yeah,
kind of using some old feuds or that had happened. Like everyone thought she was probably going to win the title at that pay per view, and I think there may have been a lot of jealousy from people that didn't know that if something happened and there's only really it sounds like probably two maybe three people to actually know what happened, and nothing ever got verified really.
yeah.
So I'm willing to. Every interaction I ever had with Tessa has always been good. From like she was on my a trivia team back in Windsor, doing the VIP stuff. But everything I've seen her at, she played Mario Kart with fans. Like she always seems very good to fans. This seems like the talent. Like when you were talking about like the diaries that they did on Fight
Yeah.
Network, the one she did, that whole locker room was behind her.
Yes.
For someone like that, you would think there'd be more people coming out than the ones that did at the time. So I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. But I know a lot of people weren't.
Yeah.
And you could just tell how crazy that weekend was, because I think a lot of people thought, okay, she was going to win. Are they going to change that now? Is she not? Is she
Yeah.
going to lose her spot?
It was almost, for me, the timing of it was almost like, it's clear that there was intent to spoil
Yeah,
the weekend, to
very
spoil the
convenient.
glory of that weekend. Very conveniently timed that they were going to bring this information out. And it was very interesting that it comes out from two ex knockouts primarily, with, one that effectively didn't get re-signed in Alison Kay, and then obviously, or Sienna, and then obviously the other one fueling the fire was Zack Ryder's lady. What's her name? Chelsea Green, is it her real name? I don't know. Laurel Vanessa or
Won the
whatever.
Knockouts title and immediately left.
Yeah, which was like, what's that all about? But there you go. Um, she obviously didn't tell them that was her plan. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put the title on her, would they? But I mean, she played. I mean, don't get me wrong. I quite enjoyed Laurel. I like that character. I thought it was.
Oh
It
yeah,
was.
I
It
did
was
too.
fun.
But obviously, it was not a great ending for her leaving the company
No,
on
not
her.
at all. On her part, and the stupid stuff was, it was like, it's almost like, that it was like a jealousy thing that they'd left the company, and but they didn't want anybody else to do well there, kind of
Yeah,
scenario. They don't want anyone to surpass what they've done.
yeah, and it
Um,
almost seems like it was that whole, if they're paying dues, as we've been talking about from the beginning, this is a 6-year career, really,
yeah,
and to get to those heights is pretty unbelievable. But she's that talented. But I think that definitely over the years has rubbed people the wrong way, maybe through some fault or at times no fault of her own.
yeah,
But that's what's going to happen. You're going to make enemies when you're
yeah. Of
that
course you
successful.
are. Yeah, of course you are. Um, so she seemed to be able to brush it off. She definitely seemed to be able to brush it off, and I think she probably decided that she was going to show show what she could do in the ring, and go that route. And clearly, Impact had decided that they were going to take her on face value, what they knew of her, um, rather than worry about rumors. And
Mhm.
I'm sure they probably said, "Look, what's going on? What happened?" And then she said, "Well, this is what happened," or I don't really remember it going down. Certainly the way that they're
Yeah,
describing it, and she probably gave her version of events. They've gone, well, that seems genuine, so let's go. Let's go with
yeah.
it. Whatever. Let's not ruin what we're doing. Just on a tweet, whether it blew up or not. If anything, it's the same with anything else. No publicity is bad publicity, right? So, I think it potentially backfired on them a little bit, because actually, by doing what they did, it probably put more eyes on it.
It did draw more attention, especially when she won. And it's
Yeah,
like, all right, the company's sticking with her. So what's
yeah.
that say?
What does that tell you? Yeah,
Yeah,
what does that tell you? About her, and the integrity, because they could have quite easily have pulled the plug there and then. Okay, this is not going to work. But they didn't. They went with it. They stuck by her, and they've obviously got a lot of faith in her. And I think that it's deserved too. It's just deserved it. She's worked her socks off to get to where she has, and she's taken some serious beatings along the way, as well as giving some.
yeah.
Uh, so that's that. So yeah. So controversy aside, we then get to the incredible hard to kill main event, um, and I might add there was one other match on that card which was amazing, and that was Willie Mack and the North. But
Oh
anyway, let's move on from that.
yeah.
That was an incredible match. Um,
A
so
surprisingly
we,
good match.
oh my god, it
Because
was
you
amazing.
thought he was going to have maybe another partner, but then he just does it on his own. That's up there with like the Rich Swann Gauntlet. It was like, there you
Oh, it was
go, you
amazing.
made it, you made it, Willie.
That was amazing. And if anyone didn't realise how good Willie was at that point, they certainly did that day. If they watched that pay per view, they certainly realised he's that good. Um, so yeah, so we get an incredible match, another really good match. I don't think this match was quite on the par as Slammiversary, but it was still a pretty solid, well-told story. There was some good stuff going on in there. Again, she's the underdog in reality. So the story gets told really, really well. And by the end, Tessa gets her 1, 2, 3, becomes the Impact World Champion. What a moment for Tessa. She's the first ever female world champion as such. A world or a men's title, I guess. Predominantly a men's title, which is now just a title. It's just a world title now. So it was an incredible moment. You see her family getting in the ring. A moment that always stands out for me was her brother, who's
like
sort of
crazy.
she hands him the title, and he's going absolutely nuts. You'd have thought he'd won the title. But then it's sort of kind of like suddenly the pay-per-view just sort of kind of goes off air. Now it's different for you because you were there, but
Correct.
the pay-per-view sort of kind of like suddenly goes off air for some reason. All you really see is that the very brief thing, they start coming in, and that's pretty much it. You see her do this, and that's pretty much where they ended it. Now, whether they wanted to sort of just kind of end it with the whole, like holding the title up, I'm the champion kind of scenario, I don't know. But later we then get you start to see some stuff getting leaked on YouTube and all sorts of bits like that. Maybe that's why they did it. We then sort of kind of got the Tessa Blanchard diary, and then you start to sort of kind of see a lot of the things that were going on behind the scenes at that time. You see the worry that she had, the concerns that she had about the stuff that was going on Twitter, and you could see like Scott and people backstage were all just sort of kind of like encouraging her. And when she came off and she won, you got, Scott D'Amore giving her a cuddle, crying and telling her how amazing she is and that she's just made history, and people are going to look back at this in 10 years time and say, where were you when Tessa won the very first world championship kind of thing. You saw her going up the ramp. You had D'Lo Brown there. You had Gail Kim there, and then Moose, and everyone was just like giving her that was amazing, and you deserve it, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that again, when you see like pretty much the entire roster, other than OVE, obviously, the entire roster out there, giving the praise and the accolades that she deserved, and I think that was an amazing moment. I don't know what you think, but I think that was an amazing moment.
I'm glad that they did put it out there, like with the diary. I think some YouTube clips of that like the celebration afterwards, because you're right, like obviously I was there live, so I didn't really know where it was cutting off on pay-per-view or anything. But so you had the match end with holding the title, but then she actually addressed the crowd after the match, and that really isn't shown on any of that. Like maybe some people leaked it, but like not even the diary showed her addressing the crowd. And I think that like because she kind of said like, yeah, it was like a hard time, but like everyone stuck by me. I'm like, I'm gonna make you proud as champion type stuff, and you could just tell how emotional she was, and it carried on to the back there. But it was quite the moment, because like that, like I know they were kind of emphasizing how like it was history, and it is like that is like that's by far the biggest promotion that's ever put the world title on a female wrestler, and you can't go back and now do that somewhere else. Like that is it. Like that's the main belt from a major TV promotion. So that's history, and she's got it.
It's fantastic. I just think it was it was an incredible time, an incredible moment, and she deserved everything. With all the hard work, the build to get there, the losses, the beatings, the promos, everything that led to that moment was just amazing, and she deserved it. She deserved every accolade. She deserves everything that came to her that day, and still people will talk about it, and like you say, in 15 years time or 10 years time or whatever, people will still be talking about it, because it is history, and that nothing can change that now. It's there, it's done. She's got it. She's the very first ever female men's heavyweight world champion, and nobody else can beat that now. That's it, it's done. And I think it's just an amazing thing. Just an amazing thing. And for me, I'm all for it. I think it's great. And I think if you watch it, um, you'll get it. If you don't
Yeah.
watch it, you won't get it. So
Yeah,
you
you had
need
to
to
watch
watch
it.
it.
You had to see that it play out. It told a story. They had a reason. It wasn't a gimmick. It wasn't just something to get a headline. They they put so much time in developing a storyline for this to happen to make that history, and they never wavered from that. They kept it right till the end, and I
Yeah,
applaud all, especially Tessa.
definitely. So it's interesting because we then sort of kind of saw it move into the Mexico tapings after Hard to Kill. Um, Now we saw Sammy obviously disappearing, doing the whole "you won't see me coming" stuff, and this is pretty much where he sort of then disappears for a couple of months, and creating the old ICU thing, which I don't think is gone the way that they were expecting it to go, because obviously, or the way they were intending it to go, because
Mm.
obviously the whole lockdown thing happened. In fact, I don't even think that they were originally going to unveil him when they did at Samstown, but that's another story. Um, but yeah, so we got the tapings. He then disappears. Um, we start to, we get Tessa doing an interview, about being a world champ and all that kind of stuff, and it's really good. They really showed her looking really good. Um, I think Sammy was trying to make Tessa, maybe a little bit paranoid, not knowing what's going on, having to look over her shoulders, quite scenario story going on there. But things start to move on a little bit. So we then get the first in-ring promo from Tessa, and who turns up? Well, Taya Valkyrie turns up with her claim to getting a shot at the Impact World Title, and rightly so. She's beaten Tessa a couple of, she's beaten Tessa for the Knockouts title. She beat Tessa in a street fight. You know, rightly so. She's possibly got a claim to have a shot at the world title. But as that's all starting to pan out, who then turns up? The scumbag himself, the Triple X champion, Ace Austin. Now he's got a claim to the title because last time we saw, he beat Tessa to the X Division title.
Correct.
So you know, um, and then for me, probably the best moment of the Mexico taping, certainly from a promo point of view, because I don't want to take anything away from Eddie and Elgin and TJP Vikingo, Josh Alexander and Vikingo matches, because they were incredible and probably they were the highlight. But when it comes to in-ring promos or promo in general, I think this moment was probably the best of the tapings, and that is the minute Ace Austin mentions taking Tessa up to his hotel room, and she literally floors him, like like she floors him like the bitch he is, and yeah, and yeah, throws down the forearms like nobody's business. And when I talk about how good she's making how good she's making things look real, I honestly thought that she punched him out. I honestly thought that she punched him out for making that comment. I don't know whether she was expecting it, or whether they had scripted it a little bit prior to going out there or what, or he's going, this is what I'm going to say. You know what I mean? You've got to explode at me right now. But bam, it was an ODB moment. That's all I got to say.
Yes.
It was smack. And yeah, he went down like an absolute. We would say he went down like a sack of shit. That's what we would say in the UK. And then of course we get the whole Taya Trey comes in to sort of kind of help Tess out, and yeah, we end up with the four-way match, or the was it a tag team? Was it a tag? Yeah, it was a
I
tag
think it
team
was a
match,
tag.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which again that was a really good match as well. Actually, thinking about it, it was a good match. So we had some good stuff going on there. Um, that then led into the Samstown stuff, which again, they were okay. They weren't particularly. I didn't think they were particularly Tessa World Champion heavy. Um,
No, not as much for sure.
no, They weren't. And then there was a lot of they were starting to sort of rebuild more stories. I think there was they were setting seeds for other things. It was
Yeah,
kind of
it was
almost like
definitely
a
a reset taping. It was a
yeah,
reset of storylines for sure.
yeah, yeah. And of course, at that moment, we've still not seen Sammy, so we don't know what's going on there. But in reality, the guys should automatically get a rematch, right? So, somewhere along the line, he should be getting a rematch for Tessa. So, anyway, I'm gonna leave that one there because I'm pretty sure that's coming at some point. Um, but of course, so we had all the SamSam stuff going on. There was. I'm struggling to remember a lot of the stuff that went down there because, like I said, it was very much almost. You had the cancel culture thing starting up. You had um, ICU turn up,
Mhm.
right at the last minute with stuff going on with Ken Shamrock, and there was
Sure.
chucking the flame at Ken and all that, and it was like, what the fuck's going on here? So there was a lot of resetting of storylines, a lot of new things going on, so it's a bit difficult to remember everything. Um, and then obviously that heads us straight into the lockdown tapings. Excuse me, straight into the lockdown tapings. And of course, we haven't seen her since.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
guess yeah, the brief Atlanta
oh,
tape,
yeah, sorry, we did. We
and,
had the Atlanta tapings as well. Yes.
but you're right, it was the same thing. Like they weren't getting too heavy. Like it was still kind of, you could say that reset continued almost.
Yeah,
Like they were
it was like a
developing a lot of
shimmer.
storylines.
It was like a shimmer, wasn't it? It was sort of kind of, it was there. It was a simmering in the background, but it wasn't taking the, I guess, I suppose that at the end of the day, they're sort of kind of protecting her a little bit because, if they just suddenly stick her back in with Sammy and she loses, it would all be for nothing. She has to have a
Yeah,
period of time where she's champion, otherwise it loses its meaning, doesn't it? At the end of the day.
yeah,
Um, and I have to say, at the Mexico Tour, I really enjoyed the match that she had with Taya. I thought that was a really, really good match and
yeah.
showed
Tommy and Tessa, they work very well together. There's never a bad match between them two.
they work really well together, definitely. Um, so we had the Atlanta tapings, and then we go into lockdown stuff, and of course now we're not seeing Tessa at all because she's stuck in Mexico. Of course, you get all the rumor mills, which I think is all a load of crap. I think she just physically can't get to tapings at the moment. I am a bit disappointed that she hasn't obviously done any promos or any sort of kind of videos or anything apart from a little bit I think towards Michael Elgin at one point. But
Yeah,
other than that, so far she hasn't done anything for the next set of tapings. But we'll see because that's
yeah.
only
But
just
now
started.
that she's been announced for the next pay per view, I think maybe if you're going to see stuff like that, you'll start seeing it soon.
I think so. I think you're right. I think we'll start seeing stuff coming up fairly soon over the next couple of weeks. Um, Now, there's one other thing. Just a final thought. Now, did you know, or are you aware? This is something I found out today when I was doing some research and trying to find out a few bits and bobs here and there. Were you aware that Tessa was the stunt double
Uh,
for Florence Pugh, who played Paige in the movie Fight with My Family? Did you know that?
I did hear that. I heard that. Um, I don't know if when the movie came out that there was something. I don't know if it was at an Impact taping or something else. Like it got referenced, and I was like, oh, like interesting. Like because I would not have thought that. I saw that movie and I didn't think that. But then like you go back, you're like, oh, that is her. I could
Yeah.
see a similarity.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's funny because you just didn't, I didn't pick it up at all. Like, and I've watched Tessa like religiously. She's one of my favorite female
Yeah.
wrestlers, and
Yeah, you
and,
would think
and
it would just show like, oh, I know that's how Tessa moves in the ring,
yeah,
and
exactly. But yeah, no, that was a. So I was really surprised to see that today, and I really didn't. I didn't know. I really didn't know. And I think that's a really interesting fact. So there you go, guys. If you didn't know that,
there
Tessa
you go.
Blanchard was the body double for Paige, or so to say, for Florence Pugh in the Fighting with My Family film. So next time
She
you
does it
watch,
all.
yeah. So next time you watch that, you want to see if you can check, if you could really see that it's her. But yeah, so that's interesting stuff. Um, so final thoughts, Bill. What sort of final thoughts do you think you might have with regards to Tessa?
I am hoping, obviously with the 5-way elimination Slammiversary main event coming up, that we kind of see like we'll say a restart for the Tessa title reign, like kind of almost start anew, develop some new storylines. But I'm hoping because
They,
really we saw what happened with Brian Cage with injuries. You don't want to see another title reign have like this virus
yeah.
cause what it did to a title reign,
So
especially one
you're
this important.
so we could say that you're saying you're saying that Tessa's going to win that.
I am, and I think I'm probably in the minority because I think most people are thinking it could be a change, but I think once again it's going off rumors and hearsay. But I think they want her to have a title reign
That's worthy.
that means something. That's worthy of what she put into it, and to have it end like this. I know people go, well, it's a 5-way, but it's still elimination. It isn't like she couldn't be pinned. So I think it would still not. I think she has to win it.
Okay. Okay. And of course, I'm assuming that it's because it's a gauntlet, isn't it? Which
It
means that they're
is.
coming in, right? So
Well,
I'm assuming.
they're calling it elimination, so it could be gauntlet. They haven't got real specific on all the rules, but it's definitely an
Okay.
elimination 5-way. At least
Okay.
that's what they're saying now.
Okay. So she could get basically eliminated like first, and then
Early, yeah.
it's
She
yeah,
could
she
be
could
grayed out,
yeah.
which I don't think that helps at all, the situation. If it
No, I
was a
think
5-way match where she couldn't be pinned, I'd almost think it more likely that maybe she doesn't retain. But based on these rules, I think she has to retain.
yeah, yeah. Okay. See, I was seriously thinking that they were going to put it on Michael, but um,
I
what
think
would be
Michael's right
interesting.
in there.
I think what's interesting is that maybe Tessa comes out as champion, and then we see a feud with Michael.
We could. I think it's either going to be, if she retains that title, it's going to be either a feud with Michael or Moose with the whole TNA title storyline.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
that's
which would
going
be
somewhere.
interesting.
That's going somewhere, that storyline. So it'll be interesting to
It
see.
it's got to go somewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
otherwise it's been a complete waste of time. So it's you know what I mean. It's got to go somewhere. It's got to go somewhere, even if that turns out that it's like some sort of combination thing where they combine the two
Yeah.
titles together or something. I
Yeah.
don't know. There's got to be something for it. Otherwise, and the way Moose is portraying it in the moment is incredible. So, like, he's really making that title mean something again.
Correct.
Um, Even though all he did was picked it out of the storage. But having said that, that's a great storyline. So okay, so well, I'm afraid that's pretty much all we've got time for today, Bill. But what a great discussion about our current Impact World Champion Tessa Blanchard.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Pleasure here, Bison.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So can I just say, make sure that everybody you give this video a thumbs up. Leave us a comment. We love to get your feedback. On the show and the content, and hey, why not leave us your thoughts of today's character? Obviously Tessa Blanchard. Um, if you're a first-time listener and like what you hear, don't forget to head over to the Total Nonstop Impact YouTube channel. Give us a sub, smash the bell. That way you never miss a listen. We're also available on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Basically, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, we're available. So please don't forget to check us out over there. Again, it's Total Nonstop Impact. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's TNI at We Talk Impact. We've got quite a few followers on there, so we often spread stuff around. We put out some great content, so please check us out. Bill, why don't you let us know where the Impact Tribe can find you on the socials or?
Probably the best place is Twitter. It's at my name, at William M. Gardner. So it's my name, William, another M, Gardner. So you can contact me Twitter. I do have Instagram, same thing, but I'm trying to get a little bit more social on there with all this free time we have.
That's great. That's wicked. So you can find me the Bison on Twitter at Lord Bison 45. So all that's left to say really is a huge thank you to Bill for joining me today. It's been really great to have you. Thank you, Bill.
Great to be on, Bison. And here's hoping Joe recovers soon and gets back in the chair. Just a small, we'll say, just fill in the chair for a day here. That's all.
Exactly. It's like keeping it warm. That's
Yeah,
what we're
keeping it
saying.
warm.
Everyone's keeping the
keeping it
chair warm. That's it, exactly. So all that's left to say really is I've been Bison, he has been Bill, and this has been episode 17, Tessa Blanchard of Impacted.